Welcome back. Well, we just heard from Treasury Board President Tony Clement with an update on the government's concerted campaign to cut billions from the federal budget to get Canada out of deficit. But how should the government prioritize those cuts? And in the face of a Conservative majority, what, if anything, can the opposition do to influence the government's decisions? Joining me from Montreal is the NDP revenue critic, Wong Mai. Second time on the show this week. Appreciate it, Wong. And in Toronto is Treasury Board critic for the Liberals, John McCallum. And he's done an awful lot of work on this kind of issue before. So let's start with you, John, because I was looking at one of your reports that you did, so I guess it was in early 2003, if I'm not mistaken, where you were looking to identify places to make cuts. What suggestions would you give to Mr. Clement as he looks for $4 billion in savings as to how to go about doing this?
I think ours was 2004-05,
okay.
And we found $11 billion of savings over 5 years, which is a similar amount to what the government is looking for. And every item of that cut was in the 2005 budget. So it's a similar process. And what I would say is you have to make sure it's fair. You have to have a regional lens because civil servants will tend to focus cuts in the regions where the jobs are often most needed. Mm-hmm. You have to go against that. And you have to get serious input from the civil servants, or else they'll propose cutting musical rides and silly things of that nature. So we came up with that. There was hardly any attention paid to it because there was hardly any protest. Mm-hmm. I think we succeeded in finding $11 billion of savings, mainly through making programs more efficient rather than firing people. But the one caveat, Rosemary, I'd have today is that as of now, the world economy is in turmoil. Stock markets are crashing. More and more people are thinking the world is going back into recession, the so-called double dip. Mm-hmm. So I would say the circumstances now are different from 2005 in that the government has to have a plan B in its back pocket. Because for all we know, 6 months from now, when the budget is delivered, the world will be in recession, unemployment will be shooting up, and so the last thing we would want to do at that time is have cuts in government spending and make the economy even weaker. So I'm not saying that's going to be the case, but we have so much uncertainty. You have to be prudent, you have to be flexible, and you have to be prepared not to do these cuts if the economy turns out to be a lot worse than we're expecting today.
Although, Wong, it seems like everyone is preparing for cuts, whether it be the United States, the city of Toronto, or here nationally. Everyone is coming up with plans to save money. So what do you think Tony Clement needs to look at or consider from what you heard in that interview?
Well, one thing that we have to make sure is that he has to be more transparent. Mm-hmm. We're talking about cuts being made, programs but we don't have any criteria as yet as to who and how we're going to have the cuts made. I do believe that things can be more efficient. Yes, so yes, you can have cuts, but again, we have to have a more transparent. We have to know what to expect, and also how the cuts are being made, and which program do we choose? So, because right now what we have a government that is making cuts, but really it's a more ideological cuts than really what we need.
Well, Wong, given that you don't know where they're going to make the cuts, how does the official opposition influence the government's decisions in terms of where they make them? It seems to me that's going to be pretty impossible for you to have any sort of influence or put any pressure on them.
Well, our idea always has been to work with the government. So we're going to try to work with the government to try to get the more information on how the cuts will be made. There are committees. There are ways of really trying to bring forward. If the government doesn't really work with us, mm-hmm. then we'll have to make it come out and just say, well, protest against some of the cuts that you know today with the announcement. Some cuts have been made, and we'll have to announce that those cuts are not good cuts.
Right. Okay. And we'll talk about those in a minute. Yeah. But John McCallum, let me go back to you. When you had that report, did you make that public? Or I mean, are you quite? I'm sort of wondering if the government should be making the process more public as well, as Wong's mentioning, because we're going to be talking about and speculating about this for months, and we're not going to know anything until March, foreseeably, when the budget is tabled.
Well, to be honest, Rosie. We didn't say much before the budget was produced. When the budget was produced,
the honesty, John.
When the budget was produced, every single item was there in detail for everybody to observe. But I don't think we pre-announced things. But I could going back to what you said earlier in terms of being transparent, we don't object to the principle. But if you look at the information technology cuts, for example, if you go back just over a year, and the Auditor General said this needed to be done, the consolidation of information technology. But she also said it would cost $2 billion to implement it just for 3 departments. And Tony Clement was silent about that. So, yes, in the long run, there are savings, and it's a good thing to do. But to implement a massive new system, there will be costs of implementation in the billions. So one thing we want to do is call Tony Clement to the Government Operations Committee when Parliament resumes and ask him about that, because there are always major upfront implementation costs with new information technology projects.
Sure, and I did say to him, it didn't sound, you wouldn't automatically think that you can save money by creating a new agency, but you're right, he didn't get into that. Wong, let me get to the Environment Canada cuts, which are actually not part of the $4 billion strategic review Tony Clement is starting. They're part of a previous review. 700 employees are going to lose their jobs, 400 retire, and 300 others, including meteorologists and scientists, will just lose their positions. How concerned are you about the nature of those cuts and the department where they are focused on?
Well, I am very concerned. We're talking about Environment Canada right now, where we're trying to go towards a greener economy. We're trying to protect also the health and have a cleaner, healthier Canada. And you have Environment Canada being cut, jobs being cut. We have scientists, you have chemists, you have engineers. So those are good jobs, and those are jobs to protect the environment. On the other hand, you have Environment Minister who's more a lobby for the big oil companies. So again, it is kind of, you can see the ideology of the Conservative government trying to really push, give less information to the population regarding the status of where we are right now in terms of climate change, in terms of environment. So let's not forget, the idea is to protect the safety of Canadians with the environment. And also, when we shift our economy towards a greener economy, we have to have, those are jobs that are really important. And what's going to happen is that those jobs are, we'll have a brain drain. We'll have chemists and engineers going elsewhere where they can find better jobs.
Well, John, will it be that we don't have those people doing jobs anymore, or will those jobs be done provincially or in private companies? Maybe the government is just saying we don't need that many people in our department doing that work for us. We can find other ways to get it.
Well, I don't think that will magically materialize unless the government pays for it, and that would defeat the whole purpose of the exercise. So I think you can assume that things they don't do won't get done. And I agree, this is a pure triumph of ideology over science and evidence. And it reminds me of the long-form census. For ideological reasons, they abolished that because they didn't want the valuable information it provided. Similarly, in the environment, they're firing meteorologists and scientists because they don't really believe in climate change, because they don't attach a high importance to clean water, clean air. And all of these things are vital to Canadians, particularly meteorologists. I don't know where else in the government they would be employed, but clearly there are more extreme weather events. It was a big issue in Newfoundland. 5 years ago, Stephen Harper boasted of increasing the number of meteorologists, and now he's got a majority government. He's letting them go. I think this could impose real hardships on Canadians across the country.
Okay, gentlemen, thanks. I know that we're going to talk about this a lot more in the weeks and months ahead. Appreciate both of your perspectives.
Thank you very much, Rosie.
John McCallum and Wong Mai.